So, this is Heather and Jenny
with episode 23
of Surviving Darkness.
Yes. And we are clueless now. We're not really sure exactly which direction we're going to go in this week. We're both really tired. We've had craziness going on the past week. As usual, it just seems like the enemy comes at us left and right. It's a constant. It's a constant. And it's like before a blessing comes, it's the enemy has to get that last little jab in. Like, yeah, it's crazy. He says, "Oh, there's something good coming your way, so let me try to knock the wind out of your sails before it gets here." But God always turns it around and blesses us with something good, even when he comes at us with something
I was going to say, we
crazy.
just have to hold on.
Right.
Hold on, even though it may be 6 months to a year down the road. We just have to know that it's going to happen.
And we have been talking, like when we were getting ready to move, my son was reminding me of some of the things that were happening. And we were just discussing, like, watching scary movies growing up. The one, you'll probably think this is funny, but the one that scared me the worst was the Blair Witch Project, because I thought it was real.
Uh-huh.
Here I am, an adult, sleeping in the living room because Mom and Dad's bedroom door was right there. I think I was in college. And it was like, it's supposed to be like the live, or not live, reality. It was when reality TV was first coming out.
Well, and they advertised it as being
a true
real
story.
Thing. Yes.
Yeah, so I was scared to death of the Blair Witch coming into the living room.
Well, I remember being terrified of Mothman. And I was an adult when that movie came out, but I didn't even want to go outside at night because maybe the Mothman was out there.
But in your defense, we saw red eyes a lot.
We did, yes.
And in that movie, they talked about the red eyes.
Yes, and the Mothman does have red eyes.
Right, so that may be legit.
Right.
It sort of made you think of things that really happened, but I never had a Blair Witch around me before.
No.
And, all those people just disappeared, and all they had was this footage left. Oh goodness! I told you to think it was funny, but yeah, that was the scariest movie for me. All these other movies growing up, and these scary movies, and that was the one that shook me the most because I thought it was real. And it could be because we did see a whole lot of real craziness.
Yeah, and we did, and the effects and everything like that, hearing the voices and the noises and all that stuff too. Yeah, absolutely.
Have you noticed that you watch scary movies sometimes just to see if it compares to anything that we went through?
Yes. And
really, that's probably not the smartest thing to do because it does open doors.
I don't watch them anymore. I used to watch it all the time. I used to watch Travel Channel and watch the ghost hunters and all of that stuff, and any the paranormal stuff all the time, Paranormal Witness and things like that. And there's a new one it's called A Ghost Ruined My Life, and I just wanted to see what that one was about. And no, there's times that I cannot watch that stuff.
Right.
Because legit, it scares me to death.
But there's that attraction.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed that too. And that is a pull from the enemy to watch that stuff. And he'll even put in your mind, you're just going to watch this for educational purposes, just to see how they dealt with this and how they handled this situation and all of that. When honestly, when you watch that kind of stuff, you actually open a door for demonic stuff to come into your home.
Yes, you do. And then you develop fear, and that weakens you.
And that's a spirit attachment.
And I know that. And I used to be really bad because I would watch it in the middle of the night. And then I would be terrified. And I was like, why are you doing this to yourself?
And then you bargain with God, I'll never watch a scary movie again if you just keep me safe and let me sleep.
Yes.
And then the next one comes on and you done made yourself a liar because you're going to watch it.
And then when I watch some of it, I'm not saying that people everybody reacts differently to what they've gone through. But sometimes when I watch them, I'm like, that's nothing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So you had a ghost that moved things in your house, whatever.
We had one that moved things at you.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, that's not scary. And you're on TV. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you want to hear our story? You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, but then like we were talking about before this, there are movies that are supposedly based on true stories, and like I was saying, the one that I watched that when my husband and I first got together, I was really interested in watching it, was The Exorcism of Emily Rose, and it was supposed to be based on a true story. And it wasn't like the Blair Witch. It really was based on a true story.
Well, it may come out eventually that it's not true.
But, I mean, like that one was scary to see how things happened with her. I mean, she was a college student.
Right.
And it just ended up coming in her dorm room and taking
Right.
over her. And then once they were to the point where they were going to do the exorcism on her, and you call out and make the demonics, the demons say its name, and it said, I am Legion. And at that point, it was like 3/4 of the way through the movie, and I was like, I'm done, because the fear that had come over me, because it was just reality.
Right.
At that point to me.
Right.
No, we didn't go through an exorcism or anything like that. But when you are able to basically, and I know it's sound effects on a movie, but they're trying to mimic the sound of the voices that you hear. And that's what we hear, what we heard.
Right.
And things like that scare me.
Right.
And that's even
it's
on
too
these.
real.
It is, yes. And
because we have heard those voices, and they're hard. They're hard to mimic, but that someone's heard it when they're trying to get the voice just right.
Yes.
Good and well they've heard that too. And it's a different kind of voice.
And that's a lot of times when I would watch these, ghost hunters and ghost adventures and stuff like that, if I could see things move, I would be okay. But when they would pick up EVPs,
right,
and it would sound like a deep, growly man's voice, I was done.
Right.
Because that's what we would hear.
Right.
And I mean, that's even on like the tapes that we heard and things like that. That's what we would hear. And it was just too real. It would bring way too many things back. And I was like, no, I can't do it anymore.
And sometimes, like you were just mentioning the tapes, sometimes it would sound like the tape dragon.
Yes.
And that was sort of what we heard.
And it was easy, for us. I remember us being in the bedroom. I think it was our other sister that was with us, and we were listening to one of the tapes, and it started doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember us saying, oh, it's just the tape dragon.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever it was in the room with us, I can't remember for sure, but I'm thinking it was our other sister. It was in the second house.
Mm-hmm.
And us saying, well, that's just the tape dragon.
Right.
And so it worked out as a good excuse, but we knew that that's not what it was.
Right.
But like we've said 1,000 times, it wasn't like we were going to look at somebody and be like, oh, that's just the demon that we have in here. Just ignore it.
Right.
I mean, so.
And we got that noise again. Is it something going through the computer?
I think it's a clicking over there.
Is it a pop going through? It sounds like a dart.
Nerf dart.
That is
suction on the wall.
Yeah, and just keeps getting
Like,
popped off.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Or like a little surge going through a computer or something like that. But back to why we started talking about the movies was because when we were moving from the house that we just moved out of, like as soon as we started packing and started getting stuff going, there were flies, these huge horse flies everywhere. And we never had an issue with flies before. They were in the windowsills. They were on the windows, on the doors. It was like our house was overcome with flies. And I started thinking, I've watched movies, I've read books, and a lot of times when there's stuff doing that, it's manifesting. It's trying to get power and stuff to go with you. So I was like, no. Mm-hmm. No, you are not going. So, I really kicked in the praying then. I was like, no. But yeah, there's things that happen when there is a presence.
Mm-hmm.
And it lets you know. And I don't know what the purpose is other than letting you know that it's around for I don't know. I guess I'm thinking, flies are usually towards dead stuff.
Right.
And I don't know. We were looking for dead stuff. There was nothing dead.
Mm-hmm. So I remember you saying you had looked it up and there was could be a dead bird or something like that. See, you thought maybe it was down in your fireplace or something like that, but you never really found anything, did you?
No, we never found anything. We never smelled anything.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing like that. It was just, and it was random. It wasn't like they were all staying in one spot. I might find some in the kitchen. I might find some in the spare bedroom. And nobody was even in there. Mm-hmm. There was nothing in that room because we had already cleared it out. It was a spare room.
Didn't it start close to the time that we started doing the recordings?
Maybe one here or there.
Gotcha. But
not
it was when y'all got ready to leave.
It was a large amount.
Mm-hmm.
And it was becoming quite a nuisance because it wasn't there's a fly here or there. There were a bunch of flies.
Mm-hmm.
And they were various places, and it wasn't you would see one in the windowsill in the living room, maybe one in a bedroom, maybe one in the kitchen. You saw 15 to 20 in each of those places. So it was clusters of them, not just a random one here or there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if something was trying to give us some kind of warning or trying to scare us into not leaving. I don't know what the purpose of it was, but it was almost too, after we started talking about it and recognizing it, it sort of quit a little bit. Did you notice less? Once we acknowledged what was going on, we noticed that there was noticeably less flies. And I was also doing a lot of praying.
Right.
And had a lot of the worship music going and stuff like that. I was and being I'm not scared and you're not going with me.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, those are just some of the things that we've dealt with. Just trying to leave from one place to the other. It's every time though. The one time it wouldn't let Dad leave the house. It was that invisible barrier keeping him in the house. Then you got the flies trying to manifest something. And it's been like that almost everywhere we've tried to move. Or anytime we've tried to move. And the one house when everything went crazy when we were trying to pack up. When I had mean thoughts about hurting my son and his friend, and then my ex-husband coming over, and it sounded like somebody was demolishing the whole house, and there wasn't even that much stuff in there. And when you went in there was nothing. It sounded like shelves being knocked over, glass going everywhere. There was none of that stuff in there.
Mm-hmm.
And when we went in, there was nothing compared to the sounds that you heard on the porch.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So
and at that point, that's when he finally realized that there was something going on.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. 13 years later.
Right. Yeah.
13 years in a divorce? No. 15 years later. 15 or 16 years after the fact. Because we'd already been divorced 2 to 3 years at that point. We had been divorced for a little while, and that's when it showed itself. And I'm glad it did finally. It didn't help the fact that, our marriage was over, ruined. I was married to somebody else, but it did sort of show that I wasn't all the way crazy.
Right. And solidified, what Jesse had seen, what you had gone through, so where he could actually understand, you know? Like you say, have confirmation and be like, oh, well, yeah, okay, I get it now, you know?
Right. How did
So,
y'all live through all that?
yeah, yes.
Well, it would have been a little easier if I had somebody on my team.
And it's hard for people who haven't gone through that to understand anything, you know? That's, you know, my husband has a hard time, and a lot of, you know, other people have too, understanding that it wasn't just our dad being sick in the head. You know what I mean? Like that there was another
Presence.
Yes, there was definitely. And, you know, there were, like we've said 1,000 times, there were things that definitely weren't that. But there was always a contributing factor, you know, always something there. And like I said, I don't know if I would believe it if we hadn't have lived it, you
Right.
know?
And that's why I say all the time that I don't believe in ghosts per se. I believe in familiar spirits because I think that, like, when a person passes away, they're going to heaven or hell. That they're not just roaming the earth. I just don't believe that. I believe that it's a spirit that is familiar with that person and mimics that person. And it keeps people, like, people will be like, well, my mom came and visited me, or my sister or brother or relative, husband, whatever, came and visited me. And it is a false comfort. And eventually it winds up not being such a nice presence.
So, and I'm not trying to argue with you. I guess you'd say I'm playing the devil's advocate, but what about these that are just randomly seen? Like, don't have a tie to anybody. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, say you're just driving down the road and you happen to see a random ghost that people see that they don't know anything about. What do you think about
They
that?
might not know that person, but that spirit is emulating someone. You might not be familiar with who that person is emulating, but that person is emulating someone, or that spirit rather is emulating someone. That's why it's familiar. It's familiar with that person that it's portraying itself to be. Not familiar necessarily to me or familiar to you, but familiar to the person that it's portraying.
Okay. I gotcha.
So that, I mean, some other person may be like, oh, I know exactly who you're talking about. That's so-and-so.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because it's got the looks, it's got the mannerisms, things like that of a person that it's familiar with.
So when it shows up, it's just what it does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, I've heard a lot of people say, you know, I've had something there and it would turn off the lights and turn on the lights. And I would think that it was my relative that had passed away and this, that, and the other. But then things started getting ugly.
That's what I was getting ready to say is I think that there are things that just happen. You know what I mean? Like can be beings in a house, you know, that just do random stuff. But at the same time, do I think that eventually their negative intentions are not going to come through? Absolutely, they're going to.
I think if you entertain it, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, and that's exactly right. So, no, no, I'm not, I don't, like, okay, that's great. Thank you for turning off the light. But at the same time, go on, because I don't need you in my house. You don't need to be here for any reason. I don't care if you are as innocent as can be. I still don't want you in my house because your intentions are not good.
Right.
You know, and some people don't feel that way.
Right.
They're like, oh, it's fine, whatever. It's just a ghost that's just walking through here or whatever. Well, okay, that's what we thought at first.
Exactly. That's why we were talking to it.
Yeah.
So what if there was a loaf of bread in the window and then all of a sudden it's not there?
Yeah.
So what if it was kind enough to make us a cup of tea?
Yeah.
And this, that, and the other. And
that's why, you know, like, and that's why I said I wasn't arguing with you. I just was asking a question, you know, because I didn't understand what you meant with that. But that's why if people talk about ghosts and like, well, I think it's pretty cool. And I'm like, well, okay, great.
Keep
Good for you.
entertaining it.
You know what I mean? Like that's okay. You go right ahead. However, that's not for me. Like I'm not doing it.
And if you think about it, every time that person comes to visit you, you are back to being depressed. Mm-hmm. You're back to reliving the loss. You're back to being sad because they're no longer there. It's a reminder that they're gone every single time they come to see you.
Yeah.
Sure, you might feel happy or whatever for a couple of seconds while you think that person's there. But then all of those other emotions, it's almost like playing tricks on you or playing games with you. I'm gonna dangle this piece of cheese or whatever in front of a mouse's face, but then I'm just gonna take it away. Right. I'm just gonna leave it there for a couple of seconds to make you think that there's actually cheese there, and then I'm gonna leave. And then you're like stuck there. There's nothing. There's nothing there anymore.
Cheese.
Craving cheese. Yes.
Sorry, I could not resist.
Yes. Yes. And then you're sitting there thinking, what happened to the cheese?
Oh, goodness.
It is what it is.
Moral of the story, enjoy your cheese while you're there.
That's right. Grab the cheese while it is dangling.
Maybe it wasn't the best example. But you know what I mean?
Because the ghost may steal that cheese back.
Leave it to mom to make an analogy with cheese.
I mean, it's the only thing I can
listen. We
That's
cannot.
the only thing you think of.
We cannot cut this out either because this lets you all know that this is just true. Like, this is just real. Some days it is.
And the blonde goes deep. Yes.
So I do have a question then. Not about cheese or mice.
Okay.
So like I read stories a lot and
I was thinking about the lost cheese.
Oh my goodness.
There's a real loss there.
She's so upset over the cheese being gone.
I'm hysterical. But anyway.
So we were doing putt-putt golfing the other day, and they have like tidbits of information about things in where we are, and it was talking about the ghost that had come back to talk to her mother. This ghost had come back to talk to her mother to explain how she passed away. And so they actually ended up finding out that her husband had murdered her because she had talked to her mother. And they exhumed the body and found out that he had strangled her and broken her neck. Mm-hmm. And so he ended up serving life in prison over that. Mm-hmm. So what's your thoughts on that? Like how would you explain that?
I don't know. Maybe it was an angelic being.
That maybe God allowed that to happen so she could have justice or whatever. So
I mean, like, after her dad passed away, Dad and the boys were very close. And my oldest son heard his voice, like, talking to him. I think that sometimes there are angelic beings that come and give you comfort. And I don't know that they couldn't let you know what may have happened. That way that the family could have some peace.
Okay.
I'm not saying that's what it is, but I believe that, you have demonic beings and you can have angels too. If there's good and evil, then you can have an evil being and a good being. But it's like when they stick around and they're causing you grief. With every single time they come and they leave and you've got that loss over and over and over, and like every night or every other night they're coming and sitting on the bed and talking to you.
And so
or
that's
just
more of
having
like the
presence.
negativity.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I got
Because they're there and it's you're feeling that loss over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's when it's not
like when the devil's playing tricks on you.
Yes.
Okay. I gotcha.
Just dangling it right there in front of you. And I'm not going to say cheese. I'm not going to say cheese this time. Just dangling the presence of that person right there. And knowing that in a few seconds, they're going to be gone.
And I see that because a lot of people do have a very hard time
letting go.
Yes. And grief is different for every person. And so, again, the devil realizes our weaknesses in our minds.
Yes.
And that's what he does.
Yes. And he keeps coming at you with with the same trick over and over and over until that trick no longer works.
Right.
Or they have to up the ante because you're becoming a little immune to that.
Right. And they have to bring bigger cheese.
Blocks of cheese. Like we've gone from slices to the block of Velveeta cheese.
We talking food pantry cheese.
I love that commodity cheese. But anyway.
No, I get that. I do now.
I mean, we could be like Bubba Gump. We could name all kinds of cheeses.
We could. Yes, you are exactly right.
But we'll save that for another episode. Not really, but it sounded good.
Yeah, I was just curious, how, what you thought about, like I said, with that ghost coming and helping to kind of solve her murder, and what you thought about that. So,
but it wasn't like hanging out all the time and keeping things going. It, you know what I mean? Like keeping this sadness going. Why are you laughing? And keeping this sadness going. Once that was solved or whatever.
Yeah, she did go away.
Yeah.
It gave her the cheese.
It gave her the cheese and it left. And they had cheese at Crackers. And everything was good.
The cheese analogy.
She's like, yo, what's up? This is what happened.
Oh my goodness. This sleep deprivation is getting us. Oh.
I'm just thinking of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. This is a story all about. Here's your cheese.
Here's your cheese. Would you
Mama,
like some
help me.
cheese to go with
Somebody
your
done
wine?
murdered me.
Oh my goodness. She's having a breakdown.
This one's not even going to have a blooper. This is just mainly bloopers.
Oh my goodness. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm
Goodness.
sorry.
There's not even going to be a behind the scenes or anything. It's going to have a behind the cheese.
Cheese.
We're also
Is
in
that
a
always a
very
good
hot
story?
room, so it actually could be like,
Is it?
like about to have a heat stroke or something. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
Having a meltdown over there?
Yes.
Literally?
Oh my goodness.
As
Yeah.
long as the cheese don't melt, we're
I
good.
laugh at her trying not to say cheese again. She was trying to come up with a new analogy. She's like,
What? Send me
Oh
one.
my goodness.
Telepathically, send me
Oh,
a new
God,
analogy.
you will.
Because the cheese
I'm
didn't
just
work.
laughing at the cheese.
And then I sort of forgot where I was going with the cheese.
Well, this is how we survive darkness.
Yes, laughing, cutting up all the time.
Oh
Sometimes
goodness.
the real cheese is the friends you made along the way.
Yeah. And speaking of cutting up all the time, I got your son that t-shirt that said something. What did it say?
It did say something.
You're gonna have to just mark this whole flashback.
No, this is the episode.
Oh,
This is what
goodness
they get.
gracious.
My Aunt Heather thinks I'm perfect just like her.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some people would think that's arrogance, but that's us. That's our joking.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really think I'm perfect at all. He was sure to tell me that
Just
I
depends
wasn't.
on the day. No,
Yeah,
I'm
but
joking.
he was sure to tell me, no, you're not taking a picture of this shirt because you're not perfect.
And
Thanks,
I can't
kid.
wear this shirt because
You're not
my Aunt
perfect.
Heather is not perfect.
I might be, but she's not.
He even looked at me and said, I don't remember where we were. And I read the shirt and he looked at me and he said, why did you put this shirt on me? Because she is not perfect. But yeah, that's true.
That's our
it is,
humor. I mean, that's just how we are. And other people who don't know us might think, man, she really thinks she's somebody.
Yeah.
She is really
Mhm.
full of herself. But, I mean, I don't care about that
Right.
because we know that it's a joke. I don't think I'm perfect. I think it's funny
Right.
that
Yeah.
that this kid's going around with a shirt on that says that his aunt is perfect.
Right. Yeah.
Thinks he's perfect because she is too.
Right.
Just a little cheesy.
Yeah.
It is a little cheesy.
It is.
Little
It's
cheesy.
all right. What kind of cheesy? Blue cheesy or cheddar cheesy?
Yeah, they just all knew that. Get on here, this rank cheese.
Rank cheese.
Blue cheese is some rank cheese.
Feta cheese.
That's all y'all. I'm not a cheese person. Y'all have all the cheese y'all want.
Oh my lands.
Feta cheese smell like dirty feta.
Okay, y'all, this is getting really bad.
Okay.
This is gonna be a great episode. It's probably gonna have the most watch retention.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, seriously, we have talked some serious stuff, but
And this really has been a rough week. Like it
It
has, you know, it is like the country song, you know, like my wife left, my dog died, and all this other stuff. Well, we did have a dog that passed away, Heather,
early
yeah,
this morning.
early this morning.
And that was hard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're joking today and everything, but that was,
Yeah.
I don't ever want to watch that again.
No.
I don't ever want to see that again.
Mm-mm. No.
It don't matter how old they are. It's, you just want God to take them quick.
Yeah. And then we've had things going on with our mom, you know, and so we've had to kind of, I guess you'd say reality kind of hit us recently with her. That some
She's
things,
getting older and things aren't
like they used to be. And we're not
the
for
old
sure
gray
about-
Mary, what she used to be
Yeah.
is what they say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
Yeah.
things have been different with that. And then,
And then we have the popping again.
yeah.
I don't know
Sounds like
what
it's
that
in
is.
closet or in the
It sounds like to me it's in that wall.
It sounds like it's.
It did that sound like that to me that time behind him.
I don't know.
So, I don't know either. These are not special sound effects that we're making
No,
for
I
the
don't even know
episode.
if anybody
I
can
don't
hear
even know
that.
they can hear it.
It's like,
It does. It sounds like someone's pulling like a plunger of a
yeah, a small dart, one of those little plastic darts. Like,
Mm-hmm. So
I
I
don't
guess
know.
you would say, you know, like, yes, we have been silly this episode and we have not covered a lot, but we are still trying to decide how to go about continuing the one episode that we had that was really very traumatic
right.
for us, and trying to figure out how to continue talking about that. And maybe this week we have diverted our attention away from
From
that
that
one,
one.
you know, so that way we didn't have to cover that topic.
Right yet.
Yeah. And, you know,
It is coming.
it will. Yeah. And we want to continue to talk about it, and we will. We have to eventually.
We just need to delve into why we reacted that way.
Yeah.
Because we've had so much happen. Why out of everything that we've talked about, everything that we've shared, did that hit so hard?
Yeah.
But that's
And I'm
to come. You're right.
not ready. Like, I'm just being honest. We will, you know, it will happen. We have to, because we have that one ready to go. It's just, we have to end it. You know, we
Right.
have to continue it to end that episode also.
But mentally, we have to be prepared and figure out why.
Yeah.
Why out of everything? Because it wasn't so huge that it should cause that kind of reaction. But there's something.
But it's also
in there that's causing that. It's huge to us.
Yes. And I think it's also strange that we had not really mentioned anything about what we talked about in that episode
Right.
to each other at any point.
No.
And it was like,
Because we had both forgot about
Mhm.
that. It was
Yes.
just one little question from my son that turned into something big.
Yeah.
Because we hadn't even gone down that path. We
No.
hadn't even thought about that path or road even being there.
And like he said, you know, it's a trauma block, you
Right.
know, and they are real. You know, it really is. You think that you have dealt with everything, you know, or we know that we forget things because it's been so many years, but, you know, at the same time, you think you've dealt with the most traumatic things, and then boom.
Right.
And it's like, oh my gosh,
Where
you
did
know,
that come from?
yes. And I was literally sick to my stomach, and in tears. I was just done, you know. And I think that because that was so traumatic at that point, that it's been hard to be like, okay, well, let's jump back into that topic.
Let's pick back up where we were.
Yeah.
So,
and like you say, we're going to have to, but this week has been, yeah, we had a fun time this time and everything, and it's just been a little bit different for us.
It's been a little bit of a cheesy episode.
Yes, it has
but
been.
That's okay. We don't have to be serious all the time.
They don't all have to be Gouda.
No, they don't. Some are just cheddar than others.
Yes. But anyway, you know, hopefully next week, the week after, just keep tuning in, because you will be able to hear what we're talking about with that episode, and then the continuation of that episode, and when we're ready to release it and ready to attack that topic again.
Yes.
But for now, we have had a lot going on this week, and just, as always, keep us in your prayers, because there's been a lot of things we're dealing with mentally and stuff too. And if you pray, whatever, you know.
Right.
But we do appreciate you all for tuning in and everything like that. And this is episode 23.
Yes.
So hopefully you're caught up. If not, then
does it count
it's
if the
time to
person that puts them out hasn't listened to all of them too? I mean,
one of us
what's in there.
has.
I know what's in there.
One of us has, and it is very good to listen to all of them, because there
Yeah.
are things that do help, you know, for us with the next ones also. And it's good to listen back to things too that you may not remember that were said during the episodes too.
Yeah.
Especially-
I'll get caught up.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard though to listen
It
to
is.
it, because you've just lived it, and a lot, like we've talked about before, a lot of times these are draining.
Yes, they are.
And it's like, okay, that's over. Move on. That's over. Move on. And when I go back and listen to them, I'm like, oh my goodness. I thought I was done with that. Now I'm listening to it again. So I don't know. Maybe that's something I need to work on.
And it is hard sometimes. I mean, it really is, especially if it's been a rough topic, for it to come, you know, to have to listen to it again. But at the same time, I think it is good for me. It's good for me to listen to and be like, okay, well.
And I mean, you're right, because I've listened to them before and been like, oh yeah, we kind of probably explained that one a little bit better too.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we need to delve a little further into that topic.
Yes.
So, I mean, you're right. It's just, that is probably just my mental block right there. I'm done. I've put it out there. I don't need to listen to it.
Mm-hmm. Right. And everybody deals with things differently.
Right. All right. Well, we will finish up for this week and be back on here next week, and we'll try not to be so cheesy.
That's right.
That'd be great.
Thank you all.
Have a good week.